The first thing I wanted to mention, or the first question that we had gotten, had to deal with, the question was basically, what information do you need to provide on an ongoing basis for purposes of applying for Social Security disability? So basically what that question involved was, if you've already provided medical information, but they still haven't made a decision, should you still be providing additional medical information? The answer is absolutely yes. The way we do it is we want to make requests for medical treatment, for the medical records, as quickly as possible. And then we provide all of that information. Now, if somebody gets denied, we go through the appeals process online. First step is the initial application. Second step is what's called reconsideration. And then there's the third step, which is a hearing in front of a judge. So what we try and do is we try and get as many of the medical records as fast as we can. And then when we start getting closer to the actual hearing, we want to update everything. And we will also send a letter to the medical providers, and we will ask them to fill out a form which is called a residual functional capacity form, or an RFC. So that's the treating doctor providing information that gives Social Security or a judge the ability to see what the treating doctors are saying as it relates to the specific nature of someone's disability. Okay, so we always want to try and provide as much information as possible. The other part of it is we want to make sure that we get all of the records from all of the doctors. You never know when something is going to provide some insight into somebody's disability, be it a family doctor or a specialist. So you always want to try and get that information as quickly as possible. So that was the question as it related to Social Security. The other question that we had gotten had to deal with second opinions again. We had talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to touch upon the fact that if somebody is hurt at work, right, by law, automatically entitled to receive 3 basic benefits. You get medical treatment, you get paid if you're out of work, and then you're entitled to an award for your injury. In terms of the medical treatment, though, more often than not, the insurance companies are going to send you to their primary care doctors, type occupational health or Concentras, that kind of thing. So what we want to try and do is make sure that we're getting them to specialists as quickly as possible. And then once that's done, if the doctor makes a recommendation for significant treatment, then at that point we can ask for a second opinion if the client is uncomfortable with the doctor's recommendation, or if the doctor is recommending something significant like surgery, making sure that they have at least enough information to make an informed decision. Now, I always tell to people, it doesn't matter. If the doctor makes a recommendation for treatment, nobody is ever going to force you to have that medical care. All right. It can always be that you choose not to receive that medical treatment, which is fine. Nobody is ever going to put a gun to your head to say, oh, you got to go get it. But the legal reality is that if you're out of work and workers' comp is paying you and the doctor makes a recommendation for treatment that you do not want, that's fine. But the consequence to that is that the temporary disability benefit from workers' comp is going to end. So just have to be aware of what's going to happen if you choose not to go forward with that medical treatment. Okay? So that was the second one. One of the other things that I actually had the opportunity to talk about this past week when we were giving our presentation at AFSCME, had to deal with what's called a functional capacity exam, or an FCE. And I just wanted to touch on that real quick because those are the kinds of tests that are really used for or by the insurance companies and or the employers to deny people their benefits. And what I mean by that is a functional capacity exam, in theory is supposed to be able to measure what you can and cannot do. But really, more often than not, what happens is it indicates that there's some form of permanent restriction. And as a result of the permanent restriction, the employer now is given the opportunity to basically say, you're going to get terminated. So, in that, or that they can't accommodate the permanent restriction, in which case, they're going to say, okay, here are your options. You can resign or you can retire. The other part of a functional capacity exam, too, is that if it indicates that you have a permanent restriction or the permanent restrictions are placed on you, I've seen where the insurance companies now will stop paying immediately because their indication is that there's a permanent restriction, and as a result of that, you can't get any better medically. And if you can't get better medically, they don't have to continue to provide benefits. So those or that particular diagnostic study tool is something that we will dissuade our clients from having. Now, if our client, if we are in the point where we're going to move forward, let's say, to applying for a disability pension, or my client feels that they can't return to work, then we're actually going to encourage that they go do the functional capacity exam, because then that result will help us demonstrate that there is a permanent restriction, and if there's a permanent restriction, they can't do their job. So it makes it easier for the pension application process to have a functional capacity exam result that will indicate there's permanent restrictions, and as a result, we're in a position to make that application process easier and quicker. So, I guess the answer is, in terms of a lot of these things, it depends on the fact pattern. It depends on the specifics of each and every case. And so, the most important thing, of course, is to make sure that, again, we've talked about it, the reason that we do this show, the reason that I keep speaking, and the reason that we want to make sure that everyone sees this is because this is important information, and you need to have somebody guide you through this that knows what they're doing when it comes to these three specific areas: workers' comp, Social Security, and pensions. So, you may not get the right answers with someone who, let's say, is a good workers' comp attorney, but doesn't handle Social Security disability, right? They may not know when to apply or what to do. Same with pensions. So it's very important that if you're speaking to someone like Sam Gaylord, that you get the right information regarding these particular topics.